good, Italian job?
Feeling good, Tommy boy. How are you, brother?
I'll keep it short and sweet. After the past 10 days, I am endeavoring to have a positive impact on the world, and I will leave it at that. Other than to say it will be intentional and it will be expeditious. How are you?
Awesome, man. And your chest is looking a little swole from all those merkins, the merkins of May that you've got going down.
As we speak, I have 548 left, and then I'm done for the month. But as I told you last week, I'm done for the rest of the year. Like no more merkins. I'll find something else to do 10,000 of. But it won't be a merkin. Although in the coming weeks, I will have a wonderful T-shirt to share with the YouTube Podpaxers to commemorate the 10,000 merkin challenge in May.
Awesome, brother.
Listen, I want to dive into it today because something came across the Slack chatter that really got me fired up. It took me back to something we tried once on a much smaller scale, and had some nominal success with it, but nothing like what I've seen coming out of the Tennessee regions. So let's bring on our guests, guys who are listening. We are going to dive into this concept called F3 open house. So be prepared to, when Slaughter shouted out to the nation, we want to hit 250,000 studs by 2025. Here is a fantastic opportunity to make that happen in your region. So without further ado, Cosmo, Heidi, how are you guys doing, man?
Good, man.
Good.
L-I-V-I-N.
L-I-V-I-N. All right. Well, welcome to the podcast, rather, Self-Worth Trying. We appreciate you guys being here. Let's dive into it. But first, how long you been doing F3? Who AH'd you, and how'd you get your names?
Heidi's got seniority on me, so I'll let him go first.
All right. F3, I'm coming up on my 3-year anniversary pretty soon. So I was brought in by a guy named Tool Time out of Franklin, Tennessee, just 2 or 3 weeks or a few weeks after F3 Spring Hill started up. And
Heidi, you just hit on
Portland.
mute.
Did I go to mute?
There you go.
You're good. You're back.
You're good.
You're back.
All right. Yeah.
We're back.
And we're back. So Tool Time brought me. There was already an Al Borland, already a Wilson, so I got stuck with Heidi.
That's classic. I love it. I love it. I mean, Benford Tools, and I mean, we could have gone any direction. You got Heidi.
Yeah,
that's great.
It could have been the first onomatopoeia name. It's just been called.
Oh, it's awesome.
I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary. Cosmo had my 2-year, or sorry, not coming up on it. Just had my 2-year anniversary back in January. Heidi was the cue for my very first posting in the rain and cold of January, and I hated it, and I was addicted ever since. So that's a good memory there. I got my name. So I worked at the time as the director of marketing and communications for a nonprofit. And I did a little magazine editing, and during Name-A-Rama, it just came about, like a magazine, like Cosmopolitan. So that's how I got Cosmo.
That's so good.
Another good one.
This is money.
It. It's always the tough guys that we name after, women or women products for that matter. But well done, man. Well, again, we appreciate you coming on. Rather than steal your thunder, I'll just pass the ball to you and tell us a little bit about the concept of the F3 open house.
Yeah. So, from I guess at the time of probably a couple months prior, we just had a changeover in SLT. We actually expanded the SLT to a lot of other guys on board, and we were coming up to summertime, and I was comms Q. And so I attacked it from a marketing perspective. And I think our initial thoughts and discussions, and Heidi can jump in here as well too, was how do we target FNGs? We live in a Spring Hill as a region is a kind of, I guess some folks would call it like a bedroom community. We have a lot of folks who work in the Nashville area, but it's a huge residential area, a lot of families, a lot of sad clowns. And how do we reach out and touch these guys? And so while we're always trying to FNGs left and right every day, what if we really focused efforts for 1 week? And I think what we all thought about is we kept coming up to the same hurdles and EHing FNGs, which was, that's too early. Where are you guys at? That's not for me. What we did know is one truth that I think is true for any region, which is if we can get somebody out there in the gloom to get a taste of this, the mumble chatter, the fellowship, the fitness, all 3 F's, they will want to come back. Most of them will. But it'll strike a chord with them. We just need to get them out there. If we can get them through the door. And so I was also I'm also a fraternity alumnus. And so I thought of like, well, Rush Week, that kind of works, right? 1 week, get people exposed to it. Let's do that. And so it started off with that kind of idea of let's meet these guys where they're at. And let's kind of be deliberate in what we're doing for 1 solid week. And as CommsQ, we're always putting Facebook posts out and stuff like that. But you can only beat that drum so heavily over 365 days. But what if we beat it really hard for 1 solid week? And so, we started having conversations. We had a great talented member of the PAX who's a videographer and did some video work. And so the weeks prior, we got some B-roll footage. We did our first promo video. In that video, we had testimonials from guys saying what it's meant to them. I think that's important too, because you got to show people visually that this isn't a workout just for a bunch of guys with pythons for arms, right? We got all shapes and sizes out there in the gloom, and it doesn't matter what you look like or what level you're at or what you bring, where you're at in your journey. You just got to show up, and we'll take the rest from there. So, cut a promo video. And then Heidi, as our first FQ at the time, was integral in the fitness aspect. And so I'll let Heidi speak a little bit to, how we focused that week in terms of our workouts. We did some intentional blackouts, but Heidi can speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things Cosmo mentioned is a big barrier everyone sees is that, 5 a.m. is too early, 5:30 is too early. So we did them that night. We started up evening workouts. We targeted specific subdivisions and neighborhoods around the area and just started blasting on Facebook about some black ops beatdowns that we were going to do, 6 o'clock in the evening, 6:30, 7 o'clock, whatever. And we wound up having, several of these, sometimes 2 or 3 a night during that week. And was a big success. We had a lot of guys that would show up after work. We had one dude, we named him Baby Stroller because he showed up pushing the baby stroller while he was going out for a jog. So it was really good just to give people a taste of it, to see what it's all about.
And
Go ahead.
I was going to say, on top of that biggest excuse that you have to get over, initially, and it is an excuse, is that's too early. And so, well, heck, 6 o'clock, we'll go do it right in the common area of your neighborhood, your subdivision. Let's just go ahead and write that excuse right off the table. Like, you could walk to it, right? Walk to it and show up, and, we'll meet you where you're at. And additionally, intentionally throughout the week, we had only AOQs or only site Qs lead the workouts. We encourage folks to, keep it simple, stupid, right? Mm-hmm. I think all of our regions have that habit of, we always want to outdo the last guy. And so, we just came off of GTE, but very much King Builder stuff, right? Let's make it cardio, simple exercises, simple explanations. We don't need to do 14 exercise Doras. Let's keep it simple so guys can stay together, the group can stay together. And, we really focused on and emphasized at the PAX is that, something that's been articulated recently with our most recent open house week is focus on the first 60s or the first 6s, right? So, what's a FNG's first 60-second experience like? That means guys need to shake hands with them, introduce yourself, right? In the parking lot, talk to them, ask who brought them out. How are you focusing on the FNG in the first 60 minutes of that workout, which is, are you picking up the 6? Are you with him? Are you verbally encouraging him, giving him praise, being there with them, right? Modeling good behavior. And then what do you do for that first 60 days, which is really secure that or secure that HC for the very next workout, right? Before he leaves, get his email, get him on Slack, stuff like that. So it really is a group effort. I mean, from the comm stuff we handle on the CommsQ side, Heidi was integral from the first F side of making sure that experience is really positive. But, we got a lot of interest because, all these guys, may see our Facebook posts, but they're all on their neighborhood Facebooks. And surprisingly, and Heidi will laugh at this too, we posted in community groups, neighborhood Facebook groups. We had tons of M's basically tag their husbands in it, right? And that's the secret sauce. Tons of M's, tagging hey, check this out, right? And it's again because these, a lot of guys, when we were all there once, have told our M's the excuse for years of I need to get in shape this year, or I don't have any friends, I need to find a group, right? Boom, here it is, right in your backyard.
So I love the concept of meeting the guys where they are, eliminating that barrier, the barrier of, hey, 5:30, 5:15, way too early in the morning. You guys cleared that right from the jump. I've got a question, we've kind of hinted around it, but what was kind of the payoff? What did you guys see? How many FNGs kind of came out in that big push? How did it pay off for you?
Heidi can speak to that.
Yeah. So through the course of the week, we started at Monday morning and went all the way through the week. And then Saturday was our big finale. We had a free breakfast. We had guys out there with griddles that were cooking. And throughout the entire 6-day week, we brought in 35 FNGs.
Tommy boy, when was the last time you remember 35 FNGs in a month?
Yeah,
or
exactly.
in 6 months in some cases? And this was
the time I
week.
saw that is when we were offering up fake $100 bills, but when they left. So
we must have had probably 10 guys in that Saturday too, FNGs alone, and it made for a fast, brisk name-a-rama of what do you do? I work for so and so. Cool, you're hatchback. Next one, let's keep going. So but the breakfast aspect and I think that's an important piece is the fellowship, the cafeteria afterwards. And so creating a space for that. But, like I just said, 35 FNGs, our very first open house week. Now, from that retention, we're probably at 50%. But the 15 that have stuck with it have been some of our hardest chargers for the past year. I mean, several of those guys are SLT members now. Several guys are site Qs now. They have, bought it hook, line, and sinker and jumped headfirst in. And we're seeing it again with our recent one we just finished. And so 35 is a good number. It's a big number. And it's like similar to fraternity rush. It's a numbers game. If you get 35 in the door and you can only keep 50, then you kept 15 awesome guys, right? But, the house always wins, but you got to keep bringing people out. You're not always going to hit home runs, but singles and doubles will win you the game.
Absolutely. I mean, any organization out there will tell you 50% attrition is outstanding. So, and future episodes, right? These are opportunities we can talk about things like attrition and keeping guys, what's the magnet that we're missing that would keep a guy from walking out the door and not coming back? How do we overcome the one and dones?
Yeah.
So clarifying question, you specifically used Facebook? Was there any other targeting methods?
We use Facebook pretty much exclusively. That's where most of our packs are at. We have a Twitter account. We have an Instagram. We post on Instagram as well too. But Facebook is where it's at. And I think that's because it's where the M's are at. The neighborhood groups, every subdivision had its own little next door group or Facebook group for it. And guys could EH and post stuff on there. And I think also, creating that promo video was helpful. And every morning I would basically write template copy for guys to copy and paste. I don't want guys to have to reinvent the wheel. I don't want guys to have to think too much about this. I want to make it as easy for our packs to EH as possible. And so here's a message, or even just share our daily Facebook post of what we're doing today and tomorrow, and sharing it through there and sharing it in the community as well too, which we've got some good reputation in the community, to the point where after that initial open house week, a couple months later, certain folks would post about any gyms in the area, and you'd see people who weren't in the region, weren't packs, tagging us in it, saying, check out F3 Spring Hill. Those guys are always out there in the morning with flags doing crazy stuff. So
that's awesome.
And Tommy boy, I wanted to point out, these are the same guys that brought the most recent hype video that was featured in the News of the Nation on May the 13th. It's the best hype video I've seen to date. So the marketing machine is humming in Spring Hill. You guys are crushing it out there. And Spring Hill was also featured in the local news media, a news article that was written recently that was featured in earlier News of the Nation. So I wanted to, give a big time shout out to you guys. I mean, you guys are doing some serious stuff that is getting noticed, and which is why we're so excited to sharing your story and the success that you guys have seen with the other regions around the nation. So I do have a question. It seems like you guys have learned. You've done it multiple times now. It seems like you learned a couple things. What are those things that for a region that's just getting this in their mind of, we should do something like this? what are those lessons learned that they can share, that you can share with them, so that they can kind of clear the path and light the way?
I think for me, the biggest one is making it easy for your packs. You know, not everyone, I think a lot of packs, not a lot of packs, but I think everyone comes from a different place of how comfortable they are. And again, like, you know, I do marketing, so I do copywriting all the time. I shouldn't expect everybody to be as good at that as I am. And so giving them templated stuff, and the YouTube video is huge, right? It's like, hey, here's a link, just share it with folks. This explains what we're about. I think the second biggest lesson is you've really got to focus on that in-person experience. Like when an F&G does show up, you've got to make sure you are buttoned up tight, that you are doing things correctly, you know, and this is really just for House Week, but again, like keeping it simple, right? There are AOs that we have that are hard charging AOs that, you know, they're running miles and doing a bunch of stuff. And maybe for the open house week, you don't scale it back so much as you just make it simpler, right? And you got to emphasize to your packs that, you know, it really is that GT mindset that week, and really every day, it's about the team versus yourself, right? You're there for the team, and you're there for the guy next to you and the F&G next to you. And so, you know, having good fellowship afterwards, having cafeteria afterwards, you know, we were intentional about somebody bring a pot of coffee to every single AO, and make sure, you know, you linger a little bit, you talk to guys, you hear their stories. I think that's been huge. Heidi's probably got others as well.
Yeah, I'll say for me, as Cosmo said, I was first staff at the time. And one thing that we were really caught off guard by this explosive growth. You know, to be completely honest, going into open house week, I had no clue what to expect. I'm like, all right, 6 or 8, 10, maybe a dozen, you know, and then we wind up with 35 FNGs. And you have an AO that's normally got a dozen guys at it, next week has 40 guys. You know, and to put it in perspective, the open house week was just the beginning of, you know, bringing in new guys, because these guys brought their friends and their friends brought their friends. And in May of 2021, we had 6 AOs. And by the closeout of 2021, we had 16 AOs.
Wow.
And one of those, actually 2 of them, kind of spun off into their own region. It became F3 Muletown. So going into something like this, kind of having in the back of your mind, how are you going to handle an influx of packs like that all of a sudden? How do you want to grow? How do you want to spread? You know, what can you do if you have 40 guys show up in an AO one day? How are you going to handle it?
And that,
I mean, my mind's all over the place on those kind of, I mean, the opportunity there, not just to grow your packs, right, but to grow your region. If you're about to starfish, this is a great tool to use to get, you know, both, you know, the new limb of the starfish and the existing starfish to have exponential growth. You know, I'm making notes furiously. Like you mentioned weeknight workouts, right? So overcome that hurdle. You talked about guys bringing out their Blackstones and cooking up breakfast. I'm thinking at the same time, things like, what if we ended on a Saturday with a service project? So then they get first F, second F, third F, and a service leg all in one week. Which would also, I would imagine, invigorate existing guys, an opportunity to bring out those one and dones that haven't been back, and, you know, find those potters, bring them back in, and PH them all over again.
It is, yeah, and it is a comprehensive effort. I mean, we're talking from a comms and a first F perspective, but second F, right? Making sure we're having lunches throughout the week and get-togethers, and, you know, and Heidi said it perfectly. You know, we suddenly had a problem, which is a good problem to have, which is we got to start, you know, adding by dividing, and, you know, we got to ramp up. But I think, you know, you got to think about hope for the best, you know, and really also, you know, it goes against the saying, but plan for the best. And so if you're going to have these influx of FNGs, you got to already start thinking about before open house week of, well, what new AOs do we need to spin up, right? What new places do we need to be at? And so, you know, that was a struggle for us shortly afterwards, because again, like our Wednesday AO went to having 23 guys at it regularly. And so that's exciting, but, you know, as we red and free to lead, that diminishes maybe some of that fellowship a little bit, some of that second F stuff. And so how do we, you know, divide that out into different geographical areas? So it really is a comprehensive team and PAX effort. It's not just one person can pull this off.
I'm thinking a lot too, as I listen to you guys share here in Natville, when we passionately leaned into to making sure that the Natville PAX represented the same makeup as our greater community, right? So we wanted to make sure we were intentionally diversifying ourselves. We were specific. You talked earlier about your cues were your first site cues, right? Those were the guys who were leading. You know, we picked a handful of guys and we made it clear to everybody the reason we were doing this is because we wanted to fail small so that we could be successful on a grand scale. And that really paid out in dividends. I love the fact that you have AOs that exist now because of that endeavor. I love that you have a new region because that's what we're about. If we're not growing, we're dying. And then also I made notes about your bullet points. You know, one, focused, intentional week. Having that video with both B-roll and testimony, because somebody out there is going to hear their story in somebody else's testimony, right? That's the whole point of that. Did you have a workout every night that week? What did that look like?
Yeah, we had a workout. We had a black ops in neighborhoods every night that week and multiple. Like I remember Heidi left one and drove over to the one I was leading in my neighborhood, already smoked, and we did the exact same 11s workout pretty much and smoked them again. Yeah. And we made those shorter, like those were 30 minutes. We know evenings are a real tough time for men to pull away from family, but a 6 o'clock, 6 to 6:30, 30-minute gives you a taste and experience of what this is. And those really served also as teasers and appetizers, if you will, for, hey, come back out on Saturday. So again, you're trying to secure that second HC from somebody. That's a good way of doing it. Hey, Saturday, it's going to be really cool. It'll be a little bit longer than this. And we're going to have breakfast there. Like if you liked this, if this was a good taste, a good experience for you, Saturday, that's where you should be at. Like come out on Saturday. Yeah,
I like the idea of modifying as necessary, right? So what's the desired outcome? What's the mission we're trying to achieve here? And that's to EH and engage new guys. Then let's modify as necessary. If it's 30 minutes, that makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah.
And it speaks to our first core principle, right? F3 is free of charge, which another way to say that is the first taste is free. And the beautiful thing is, so is every other bite after that. So keep coming out, keep showing up. Here's the real McCoy, on such and such date at such and such time. I would imagine guys were clamoring to find out what the 45-minute looked like, what the hour Saturday might look like.
Yeah, they were excited. And, our most recent open house week, we did the neighborhood workouts too. And we got probably less turnout than we expected for some of them. But you'd be surprised of what, 6 or 10 guys working out during afternoon, evening, the summertime when it's nice weather out. And, the one in my neighborhood, we had a kid come up and, was like watching us working out. And we told him, hey, go down the street, get your dad, like tell your dad. And the kid ran back and said, my dad heard of you. He's not coming out today though. But
hey,
but
you got the message across.
That's being in your community, right? We talk about invigorating male community leadership, and that's people visually seeing you in the community, you doing something. Our AOs are at parks and we get some, road traffic through them. But when you're actually in a neighborhood and you're doing it, guys are out mowing the lawn and see you out there doing burpees or something or running with a group of guys and they get interested a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I could speak to that in the form of, we had a guy who was really chained to his home office for a while, taking care of his concentrica, but was really missing out on the packs. And so we did what you did. We opened up a black ops workout in his driveway twice a week, made it a rucking sandbag workout. So he just turned his afternoon walk into a beatdown. And we had 5-6 guys, but those 5-6 guys are still in contact, strong, solid contact, and supporting each other in other endeavors. And when he was, when that chain rusted out and he got to step away from his desk again, lo and behold, we found another guy who was going through the exact same thing. And so we just duplicate the process. That's the beauty of trying new things, right? That's the whole purpose behind stuff worth trying is let's throw some stuff out there and see what sticks to the wall. And what worked in one region may or may not work in another, but dude, give it a shot.
Yeah.
I know I had another question, but it's escaped me because I'm getting so fired up about these blackout type workouts. Oh, I know what it was. Your first open house week. What year was that?
That was in 2021.
Yeah. So that alone is outstanding, right? So the whole world's going bananas and you guys are offering up something that is virtue full. And I also like the fact that you're leveraging social media and anybody is seeing that Circle F3 logo and getting motivated about it. You're putting good out on a platform like Facebook or Nextdoor that seems to be inundated with negative and just opinion that don't matter. And you guys are like, hey, let's disrupt the status quo here and throw out an opportunity for guys to have an impact in their community.
Yeah, and in our marketing too, we weren't shy about kind of calling out the problem for what it was. So we were a little deliberate. Some may say a little hard in the paint, but we in our Facebook posts we would say, come out to the Black Ops or come out in the morning, but we would a key point of marketing is pointing out the problem, and so we would point out, you've always said this stuff for yourself, for fitness goals or getting in shape, like this is the solution, right? Or I remember one post I did was something to the effect of, if 5:30 is too early for you to get better as a man, what else are you saying no to in your life? And I think there's some getting real there a little bit. I think a lot of times EH is like really soft and, and that's important, right? We are, our principles, but not being afraid to call the problem out for what it is. Cause someone's going to read that and say, yeah, maybe I have been saying no to a lot of stuff because I don't want to wake up an hour earlier in the morning.
And you're talking candor, right? And you realize all you've done is created that coffin with the ends kicked out, just a comfortable rut for yourself. And then somebody comes along and disrupts it and you have no excuses. And lo and behold, you actually enjoy it, even though you hate it. Yeah, I like that Kurt Rambis approach. You got to throw a few elbows to get some buckets. So well done. I know we lost Italian Job to his Mammon, but again, fellas, I want to thank you for coming on. I'm fired up to introduce this to the Natville SLT and remind them the success we had years ago and challenge them to see if we can't one up the 35 number that you guys produced. So any other final thoughts from you in regards to this? And then follow-up question, how can guys get a hold of you if they have logistical questions because they want to try it as well?
So I will say this, do not underestimate the power of Facebook or the M's. I've lost count of how many guys showed up first day. I say, how did you hear about us? My wife saw you on Facebook. We get that so much. But you guys, wear your F3 gear around town. I was at, on Friday night at the end of open house week, I was at a carnival at my kid's school, had an F3 shirt on. This guy just walked up to me and said, hey, F3, what's this open house week thing you're doing? He was at the beatdown the next morning and one of our strongest packs today. I mean, he is hardcore all in.
Yeah, you're right. And I would also put the caveat that when you are wearing that F3 gear, don't forget you're wearing it because it matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I would say, just the biggest takeaway is aim for the fences, right? Like if you're going to do it, like go for it, man. Like just go for it and make it a team effort, get the packs on board. And I think the biggest takeaway from these 2 open house weeks we've had so far is, again, that concept of focusing on what is that F&G's first 60 seconds experience like? If he shows up and no one's really introduced themselves because the guys are kind of hanging out with their own group or whatever, that's already setting a kind of a rough tone for his experience. Or, if he's fallen to the 6, which just about every F&G experience, including my own, that's kind of where you find yourself sometimes after, years of nothing. Who's picking them up, right? Focusing on his experience. And I think that's something that, we've established a culture here in the region of focusing on the guy next to you, not so much on yourself, and really doing that. And then, focus on those first 6 days, right? Are you getting him back out, right? Are you tapping into him to where we created a new position, our SLT, whose focus is solely on connections, whose focus is solely on, going through the F&Gs in the back blast, reaching out to them, emailing them, asking them what their experience is like. And the guys who say they don't want to come back, asking them why not, because that's just as helpful.
Yeah, that
figuring out
post-workout follow-up email, if that's a system we use here. It's not to say that everybody does, but that goes a long way to connect a guy, just like backblasts. Yeah, I'm a backblast diehard snob, right? Like they're just that important to me, because some guys, they just want to know that they accomplished something, and then to be able to show others what they did, that right there is a little more marketing and branding for F3. So super important. And really what we're talking about here is fundamentals, right? It's 6 days of fundamentals.
Yeah.
And so that kind of gives me a segue into what we'll call our challenge worth trying this week. Is guys that are listening, I know we talk a lot about Q-Source, and it's important because it's got a ton of fundamentals in it. And if you have yet to read Freed to Lead, there's some phenomenal ammunition in there that you can use to engage new guys. So either pick up a copy or go back and reread it, maybe start a small group over it in a book study with the guys for a couple of weeks, but crack open Freed to Lead and dive back into my favorite component of that whole book is the analogy of the 400 meters of our life. And you have an opportunity here through leveraging F3 Open House in your region to meet guys at that 400 leg that they are currently running and come up beside them and offer them something that they haven't seen or done yet, and be that steward. So guys, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Podpaxers, if you have any questions, fellas, how do they get a hold of you?
I'm on F3 Nation Slack, Cosmo, Spring Hill, Tennessee.
Perfect. And I'll put these in the notes, but Cosmo 3, Spring Hill, Tennessee.
Yep. I am same thing. I'm on the Nation Slack as Heidi. I'm the sector Q for Tennessee. I work with Angus. And also they can email me at f3heidi@gmail. And I'm on Twitter as F3Heidi.
Perfect. All right, gentlemen. Well, again, thanks for coming on the show. I look forward to posting to one of your crazy, what'd you say, like a 14 exercise Dora? So that sounds like fun. Next time I'm out that way, right after I finish the Barkley marathons, I'll come out and do a 14 exercise Dora for shiggles. But thanks for coming on. Podpaxers, as always, you can find us at F3SWT on Twitter. We are also on Slack. Bring those ideas, bring them hard, bring them heavy. Let's conquer the world, one each at a time. And with that, be good, but be good at it.